Welcome to the big kickoff brought to you by Racing Post Sport. I'm Bruce Millington and we are looking ahead to League Two, and I have assembled a panel of fine judges. We've got Sandro Di Michele, we've got Mark Langdon, we've got Ali Maxwell and the one and only, the legendary former Charlton boss Alan Kirbishley to discuss the best bets at the top and bottom of the division. We will start off with who is going to be the champions, and where better to start than Mr. Kirbishley. Alan, if you were going to have one bet on this division, well, first of all, it's wide open, isn't it? I think we need to say that, and there's probably a lot of teams can win it. But if you were looking at just one team, who would you be focusing on?
Well, I'm going for a bit of momentum. I'm going for Forest Green, a team that have gone up through the conference and got to the playoffs last season. And I just think when a club's got momentum like they have, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do this year, so they're my tip.
Excellent. Ali, you are one of the renowned lower league football experts, and I hope you've spent all summer studying up nice and hard.
Yep.
Who have you come down on the side of?
Yeah, I'm picking Bradford City. Not a team with much momentum, having been relegated from League One last season. And that's the big question mark about them. Can they stop that slide? Can they put behind them what was a horrendous campaign in League One in Gary Bowyer? I think they have the right manager in charge and plenty of ambitious summer business. I think they're the rightful favourites for the title.
And they've got some new firepower, I believe, haven't they?
Certainly do. James Vaughan and Clayton Donaldson up front. They've got Owen Doyle as well, who scored a lot of goals in his career at League One level, but really flattered to deceive last season there. If he can find some form again, they've got three proper goal scorers who have all played at a much higher level in the last few years. And all experienced players as well. They're not leaving much to chance, I think, so there is a lot of pressure on. But I believe with Bowyer in charge, this Bradford team with great fan base behind them, they could really blitz the division.
Okay, Alan's Forest Green is 16-1. Bradford are 8-1 favourites. Mark, who are you going to go for?
I'm going to go for a team in the middle of those two, really. In Mansfield, it is, I think, wide open. I think you're probably going to get a whole load of different selections. But in terms of Mansfield, what I like about sort of backing teams at this stage of the season is the ones that were the best team in the division that didn't go up. And I think that's what we've got with Mansfield. They lost the last day shootout to MK Dons, which could have secured automatic promotion. Then they were knocked out of the playoffs by Newport in a very tight game. There was rumours that they was going to slash the budget, and Flitcroft went as manager, and they brought in John Dempster, who hasn't really, no real pedigree, I think it's fair to say. However, the budget seems to have been retained. Nicky Maynard was one of the best strikers in the division. He's gone to Mansfield. I'm sure he had a lot of other offers in and around League Two, maybe even a little bit higher. Andy Cook from Walsall, big Andy Cook as well. I think he'll be the sort of battering ram for Maynard. And then you've still got Danny Rose, not that one, but the one who plays up front for Mansfield, a player I really like. And they were a very strong team defensively last season, the best defensive record in the division. They've added more goals. The manager's the question mark, but I'm prepared to take a chance.
Do Tottenham fans know that there's another Danny Rose? Because if they ever sing there's one Danny Rose, that's not allowed.
There's more. I think there's a few.
Yeah,
there's one at Macclesfield as well.
Yeah, that's
certainly
right,
used to play for
It's
Macclesfield.
the new Andy Gray, isn't it?
Yeah, there's certainly a lot.
Now, Sandro, you're going to confuse the waters even more with a fourth selection.
I am, I'm afraid. Yeah, a little bit left field, but I'm going for Colchester. They're a club who seem to have got things right off the pitch in terms of their approach to recruiting talent. They did lose a very influential player to Bristol City in Sammy Smodic. Anyone that's sort of into their data, unbelievably creative player, a lot of assists, and expected assists, expected goals. But they've replaced him with someone who's equally as talented in the division in Giovanni Brown from Cambridge United. He can be a bit of a loose cannon, but I'd imagine with a transfer fee of around £300,000 on his head, which in the modern era doesn't sound like a lot, but at League Two level it is a lot of money to spend. I think maybe he'll knuckle down with that price tag on his head. They're a big price, so around 20-1. I think they're an interesting each way bet, but I just think their recruitment, and they've got a wonderful youth structure there, and they're bringing through some real good players. So yeah, just to confuse things further, I like Colchester. Maybe if the 20-1 or 22-1 doesn't appeal to punters, there could be an angle on the handicap bets or something like that. But I think around that price, it's an interesting one.
Hasn't always like a 20-1 shot. One of my favourite prices. So we've got four selections there. If you're watching, do leave a comment and add even more. Let's see if we can get all 24 teams tipped. Alan, looking at the other end of the table, who are the sides that are going to be in peril? If you look at the betting, I think it's Morecambe and Macclesfield are the bookies' favourites to go down. But there's plenty of teams there who, if the managers look at those prices, they're going to think, blimey, the bookies don't fancy
Well, obviously,
us.
I think when you look at teams that struggled last season, Macclesfield was one. I mean, Solcam have done great. but you know, you expect perhaps they're going to be in it. I've gone for Crawley. I just think that too many changes at that club, and they've been flirting with it for some time. Cambridge. I know that change of manager, but they struggled somewhat last year, and I think the other team I'm going for, I shouldn't really, Macclesfield.
Macclesfield.
I think so. As I say, Sol Campbell done a great job, but unless there's proper investment, I just think they're going to be in it or looking over their shoulder. So they're my three teams.
Alan, at that level, how much is it about the manager and how much is it about the budget? Because presumably, if you were going for one of these jobs, the first question you'd ask is, what have I got to spend?
I think it's more about the manager, because I think you know that the budget is not going to be big, and you're going to have to wheel and deal, and you're going to have to know the opposition. You're going to have to know who you're playing against week in, week out, and get the players up for every game. And you know, so there's not much opportunity to do too much in the transfer market. It's down to the manager really in League Two.
OK, Ali, who do you think could be facing that trapdoor down to the National League?
Definitely agree with Macclesfield, and it's with huge respect to what Sol Campbell did in keeping them up last season, which was an unbelievable achievement. But the continued issues off the pitch don't seem to have dissipated at all this summer. You're seeing players who are still complaining about not having been paid their wages over the last few months. Some of them leaving the club because they are entitled to now. Some of their stronger, you know, their great goal threat from last season, or both of them actually, Wilson and Smith, have both left to League Two rivals. So I just think poor Sol Campbell has really not got much to work with at this stage. We're not far from the start of the season. So I think they're rightful, second favourites to go down. I believe Morecambe will stay up. They've been basically favourites to go down every season for the last 7 or 8, I reckon, and they always stay up under Jim Bentley. I'm going to go for Carlisle at 14-1. I couldn't believe the price when I saw it, because if you look at their current squad, they've only got about 15, 16 senior players. We know that once Keith Curle left at the start of last season, the budget had been slashed. That was very public. They did really well last season, but they got quite lucky, or good recruitment, you could say, with a few loan players. That's a risky business. You're not always going to hit on the loan players. And it looks again like this season, having lost the likes of Jamie Devitt and Danny Granger, key senior players, they're going to have to hit on 4 or 5 top quality loanees from League One clubs, maybe Championship clubs. I just think it's unlikely. So I'm desperately worried about Carlisle, and 14-1 seems a pretty nice price.
I bet if you back them at 14-1, you won't be desperately worried about them, will you? All of a sudden you'll be like, come on, get worse, these problems. Mark, your relegation fans.
Well, first of all, Morecambe, they are always the perennial sort of market leaders, and they always do just about enough. And yeah, I mean, what happened there with Jim Bentley was he pinned up on the dressing room wall one year when Racing Post tipped Macclesfield for relegation. He used it as a motivation, and I think he'll do the same again. Bookmakers don't fancy us, and blah blah blah. And he always gets just about enough, and probably more. One of the best managers, I think, pound for pound in the whole of the Football League. What he's got to work with and what he manages to do. So I definitely wouldn't be backing them. I think Macclesfield have to be on your shortlist when players are not getting paid at this stage of the season. It's got to be a massive concern. I mean, sometimes things happen during the season, and you know, we've seen like Bury and teams like that. But for it to happen now, I mean, what happens if Sol Campbell walks away? I mean, what's to keep him there? There could easily be a better job on the horizon. He was the man that kept them up last year. They were doomed without him, so I would definitely go for them.
Would you take it, Curbs? No, not for you?
No, not for me.
Too far.
And
Don't put a bet on that.
And I'd probably agree on, if you wanted a sort of value selection, I think Carlisle, Stephen Pressey's already been moaning about it's difficult to get players up to that part of the world. I don't know what he was expecting. It hasn't moved since he went there. But
it's a long way though, Mark.
It is a long way, but you know, usually teams use that to their strength of, you know, it's a them against us type thing, and you build that bond on the team coach. For him to be moaning about the location already would just be a danger sign for me.
Okay, 2 votes for Carlisle at 14-1. Sandro, who do you fear for this season?
Consistency with the rest of the guys. I think Macclesfield have to be probably your first choice to go down. I mean, Sol did that interview / rant, didn't he, probably 2 weeks after the end of the season, saying he had no contact with the owners, what was his budget, he didn't know what was going on. That's concerning, and that situation hasn't improved as we've gone into pre-season for real. So you'd have to have Macclesfield in there. And I agree with Curbs on the Crawley situation. I think if you look at their form second half of the season, it wasn't good, putting it mildly. You know, whether Dominic Polion will get them goals. If they don't get goals, I think they really, really are up against it. It's a strange setup at the club with the owner. You've got the Italian manager, Cioffi there. It's not looking good for Crawley. So, yeah, not original, but in agreement with the guys, Macclesfield and Crawley for me.
Okay, and Alan, I think if we're looking at a manager who might be on fairly thin ice, I think you're going to continue to focus on that particular Sussex club, aren't you?
Yeah, because I think over the years they've consistently changed, and I fancy if they start off badly after what happened last season, if it's a continuation of that sort of form, then I think the manager will come under real pressure, Cioffi.
And Alan, how important is it when you're putting your bets on and you're working out who's going to do well and who's going to do badly, to just assess the off the field situation? Because we've looked at two clubs down the bottom there, Morecambe and Macclesfield. Morecambe, the manager has got everyone behind him and they're achieving. Macclesfield, the complete opposite. It feels like it's something that punters really do need to they can't just ignore, can they?
No, but sometimes out of adversity it galvanises a team, as you're saying about perhaps Carlisle and struggling to find players, or you pin something up on the board, the Racing Post fancy to be favourites to get relegated. So, but as I said earlier about the manager's job, it's more about the team spirit and the day-to-day running and interactive with the squad you've got that makes it more of a success. It's mainly down to the manager. I think all the teams in a lower league would struggle with their budgets. All managers will want more. And that's why I think that when you see a successful club in the lower leagues, it's mainly down to the manager.
Excellent. Right, what else should punters be homing in on if they want some value bets? And don't forget, as always at Racing Post, we do preach responsible gambling, but what have we got that we might be able to slip a few quid on, Ali?
We talk about some goal scorers.
Please do.
Yeah, I think Mark touched on Mansfield and Nicky Maynard. Out of the top 8 goal scorers from last season's League 2, Maynard's the only one still in the division. The rest have either moved up with their clubs or moved on elsewhere. So Maynard is, we know, an established goal scorer at this level. We think he's going to be playing for one of the teams challenging at the top end of the division. So he seems a fairly solid pick to be there or thereabouts. But he's a fairly short price.
10, 12 to 1, I think, isn't
I think that's about right. In terms of a much longer price, 100 to 1, actually, so possibly one for the each way money, but you never know. Aaron Collins is going to be playing for Forest Green this season. He scored a lot of goals back end of last season for Morecambe. I think he scored a goal every 130 minutes or so, just in the last 3 months of the season. So, it was a small sample size, but for a Morecambe team right down at the bottom, he showed pace and great finishing ability. Now, as often happens with Morecambe players that perform well, he has moved on immediately to a club that can offer him a bit more money in Forest Green. If we think that we think Forest Green might be challenging, or at least they were a playoff team last season, so they're going to be up there, I think he's going to be their main goal threat. So for him to be 100 to 1, a talented player that I like a lot, I'm definitely going to have a go on that.
Aaron Collins, interesting. Mark, top scorer, anything else? A handicap bet?
Yeah, it's the handicap for me. 2 teams on the handicap. They're going to go a bit crazier on Forest Green, but again, they were one of the best teams in the division last year. Now, they lost Reece Brown to Huddersfield, the playmaker, the number 10 in their 3-4-1-2 formation, and Doige went to Scotland as well, who was seen as their best striker. But they have got a big budget, and so I'm hoping that they've been able to replace those players, and they won't need to improve that much to get in and around the handicap, sort of, copping for that. And the other one, without nicking Sandro's too much, is Colchester on the handicap. Now, there is a bit of negativity around there because they've lost some players. But, I mean, like with Frankie Kent, he went to Peterborough. I respect him as a player, but I think that they're okay defensively. I really like the left-back, Vincent Young, and then the right-winger, Senior, as well. So I think the reason that they tailed off last season towards the end, and they were looking at a playoff team all day long, was they got injuries into midfield. They had to bring Sam Saunders sort of almost out of retirement, really, to come and help them in that regard. Pell has signed a new contract. He's back. Colchester fans love him. I watch a fair bit of Colchester, sort of live not too far away. I saw them beat Lincoln. I saw them outplay Mansfield for 45 minutes as well. And I'm thinking, if you can just get a bit more consistency in your game, they should be, I think, a playoff team which could land on the handicap.
Couple of lads here, Alan. When you get back into management, you need these boys on the bench next year. I'm sitting here nodding as if I know what I'm talking about. Who are all these people? Great knowledge, lads. Now, Sandro, what else should we be thinking about back in League 2?
Yeah, top goal scorer market again, Bruce. I really do like Nicky Maynard. When you look at his stats, his expected goals for last season, he was right up there as one of the best strikers in the division. Look, he played in a very good side that created a lot of chances, but I don't see any reason why Mansfield won't be like that. And to sort of emphasise Ali's point, he's the only of the top 8 strikers from the League Two strikers chart last season that's still playing in the division. And if nothing else, I'd like to see him win it for the announcement video that Mansfield did on his signing. If you haven't seen it, go and have a little Google of it, have a look on social media. It's one of the most bizarre and hilarious announcement videos you've ever seen. It involves
slash worse.
Yeah, it involves him being greeted at the airport by Caroline Radford, who's the partner of the owner of the club, and yeah, it's very amusing. And if you don't even back the 12-1, just have a little look at that consider it research.
What's the best one of those you've ever seen?
Oh, I mean, Roma are sort of very good at doing them. Southampton did an excellent one, didn't they?
Yeah.
When they signed, was it Che Adams?
They did a good one with Che Adams recently, but remember Stuart Taylor as well, the third choice goalkeeper. They had a fantastic one for him last summer as well, I think it was.
Southampton running the social media game.
They're becoming quite a big thing, these, aren't they? You used to just have a picture of the guy signing the bit of paper and holding a scarf.
Holding a shirt up. Well, that was it.
It's all changed. OK, before we wrap, one bet on League Two this season. We'll start with you, Sandro.
Yeah, Colchester on the handicap for me, yeah, has to be the bet.
Mark?
I'm going to go Mansfield each way. Can't see him being out the frame.
Ali?
I'm going to go with Newport to make the playoffs. So Newport top 7 at 3-1.
OK, and Alan?
Well, I'm going to go. I spoke about Forest Green, but if you talk about having a bet Newport to get into the playoffs.
Excellent. OK, chaps, thank you very much indeed. And don't forget, this season there will be free football tips on the Racing Post app, so download that for free now.